What's up, everyone? Welcome to Back to the Future. The podcast takes a trip down Philly sports memory lane. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. And it's been a pretty eventful, busy, I guess you could even say red letter week for the city of Philadelphia and its sports teams, between Joe winning the MVP, the Sixers splitting the two games up in Boston, Bryce Harper coming back, and everything that goes with that. It's hard to believe that it's been a week since the Eagles picked in the NFL draft. And I, for one, have been slowly looking at this and recapping and going over what the Eagles did. So I want to take a few minutes and basically give that recap of the Eagles draft. And before I get into it, let me preface it with this. None of this means shit. There are going to be hits and there's going to be misses. Some of the guys you think are going to be good are not going to be good. Some of the guys you think were why you pick that are going to be great. The whole idea and goal, I think, as a general manager and a team in the NFL is to hit more than you miss. So take everything with a grain of salt. What you have to do as a general manager is pretty much minimize your risk. It's just like sports gambling. It's just like basically anything in your life. You just minimize the risk that you have and try to set yourself up to be as successful as possible. So did the Eagles do that? Let's find out. Heading into the draft, I would say that they had some pretty distinct needs. They needed some depth in the secondary, depth on both lines, specifically the offensive line, but the way they build their team is always have those guys on both sides of the ball and kind of build around that. I definitely would have thought that running back was a need, possibly even tight end, because they're kind of thin after Dallas Goedert. Go back and listen if you want to hear our full draft preview, but we did say the best case scenario would be get a stud with one of those their 10th pick, the first of their first rounders. I'll get it out. And that was Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, or Bijan Robinson. We said a medium draft would kind of be the normal, hey, they got an offensive line. It's not really sexy, but it's going to be a starter for years to come. 5 years from now, we're going to be like, hey, that's a great pick. I'm thinking like the Lane Johnson type pick, or back in the day, like the Trey Thomas. But worst case scenario, obviously, we probably won't know until maybe not next season, but probably the year after. But that would be like drafting a Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, John Harris, those type of guys. I kind of thought they'd be somewhere between best case and medium case scenario going into the draft. Just because of the way Howie tends to draft, I thought we'd get some line depth and basically set ourselves up for the future and see. So what actually did happen? Well, day one, with that number 10 pick, they traded up one pick, and still shocking to me that the Falcons took Bijan Robinson at 9. And even more probably shocking is the fact that the Bears, who had a clear need, did not take Jalen Carter at 9 and trade it with the Eagles. But the Eagles were able to get Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, with the 9th overall pick. Personally, I think this is the steal of the draft. I feel as though this was the guy they targeted. I don't know if they thought he'd be around there, but some of the red flags with the accident, and then due to all the legal things he was going through with the accident, having shown up for his pro day out of shape, there was concerns about his work ethic, and I get it, and I'm not dismissing it and saying it does not matter, but you have to look at it on a talent level. This is probably arguably the best player in the draft. And there would have been a good chance that one of those teams would have, maybe even Houston, would have taken him with one of those top picks. We know Houston ended up taking offense and defense back-to-back picks. He probably, if it wasn't for the red flags and the team, I guess, and the support system they have in place, they would have had it. I think this is a great fit. Obviously, skill level-wise, this is an amazing fit. Put him on that defensive line with the guys they got. But I think the Eagles have always done well with having the right people in place, having the supports in place, and they're not afraid to take a chance on things, guys like this that have sort of a questionable background. Look at what they did going back to like Michael Vick. Everybody ripped them for taking him or picking him up, and it turned out to be a great thing. The guy turned his life around. So they really believe in giving these guys chances. He's a young guy. He's still got a lot to learn, and you're putting him in with guys like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, guys that have been around that can help mentor him. And I just see the sky's the limit. I think this was a no-brainer pick. I'm glad they actually traded up and the Bears didn't have time to realize they did something stupid. So I think this was a steal of the draft. Obviously, like I prefaced at the beginning, you never know. I mean, I remember saying similar things about Jerome McDougal and things like that. I think talent-wise, though, this dude's talent is ridiculous. I think he's coming to a good spot, and to be honest, he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. So you throw all that together in a mix, and I think we're talking about somebody who could be the defensive rookie of the year. Especially the way the Eagles rotate guys and keep them fresh. He could put up some really, really big numbers. So very, very happy with that pick. Didn't expect him there. I'm glad he was. And as a lot of the pundits and players around the league were saying, the rich get richer. All right, so going into the 30th pick, obviously it was past my bedtime, so I didn't stay up, but I woke up to this. And I would say they got another steal. Nolan Smith, another linebacker out of Georgia, who many so-called experts mock draft him to go at 10 to the Eagles in the first place. So if you'd have told me they got both of these guys, I would take it. And I mean, the jokes obviously were, the Georgia Bulldogs and everything. But I mean, they have a championship pedigree with them. I think Nolan Smith is a little bit undersized, but he's super fast. Like, he's ridiculously fast. If you watch the film on him, he's fast. He is undersized. He probably is going to have to hit the weight room somewhat, but he's comparable to Hassan Reddick, who, by the way, is on our team. So what better guy to learn from than the guy that you're compared to? So, again, I think this was a huge steal at number 30. And I would have been happy if this was if they didn't have the number 10 pick and this is the only guy they got, I would have been happy. If Jalen Carter was the only guy they got on day one, I would have been happy. The fact that they got both of them, day one I would call it a success. All right, so going into day two, I honestly had no idea what to expect because the Eagles didn't necessarily have a ton of picks. So they ended up trading their second rounder to get extra picks in the third round, and then they ended up with the Cardinals' third round pick due to the tampering things with the stuff that happened with the Super Bowl and just whether or not they were interviewing and for defense. I can't think of his name right now to save my life, but whether or not their defensive coordinator was interviewing for their head coaching spot before the Super Bowl. Jonathan Gadden. I pictured his face because I just want to punch him. So let me go on a little rant with that. And the whole situation seems very, very shady. I think the Eagles as an organization are downplaying it. But it's a pretty fucked up thing what Gannon did and the Cardinals did. Basically, he's interviewing as he's getting ready for the Super Bowl and against the rules. And, like, was he 100% invested in the Super Bowl? I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine if you know you're going someplace new as the head coach and you have to finish out your 2 weeks or whatever. I've done that where I've put my 2 weeks in at a job and I'm not 100% invested. And yeah, I know NFL is different. You're in the Super Bowl. It's once in a lifetime. But man, I don't know. Like, I question how much he put into it. And I mean, to be honest, look at when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017. The Patriots defensive coordinator, who now is on our team, was going to be the head coach of the Lions. And was he invested. I mean, granted, the Eagles were good, but were they like, I don't know. Like, was he full? Were they that good? I mean, you're talking about Tom Brady and the greatest of all time, and Matt Patricia's defense, and Bill Belichick, and this and that. Like Nick Foles, who's a backup quarterback, I know we love him here. He shredded Patricia's defense. So how much was he? And then like the next day, all of a sudden, great, season's over. High five, everybody, shake hands. He's off to Detroit. I mean, they didn't even let Gannon get on the plane back to Philly. They said, fuck you, stay here in Arizona. I don't know if they said that, but basically he stayed in Arizona and signed the contract. So allegedly to interview, but they already knew he had it. So I just question it. All that to say, we took the pick, and I think the Eagles did very well with it. So in the third round, they had back-to-back picks, 65 and 66. With the 65th, they took Tyler Steen, who was an offensive lineman from Alabama. They announced him as a guard, even though he was a tackle. Definitely, he's very versatile. He could definitely challenge Cam Jurgens to start this year. And even if he doesn't, I mean, you're coming into a place where everybody says, oh, the Eagles are a quarterback factory. The Eagles are this. No, I mean, Jeff Stoutland, all of those guys on that offensive line love him, and he teaches them how to be Pro Bowl level offensive linemen. So worst case, you got a guy who can play anywhere on the line and who's going to Stoutland University, as they like to call it. So I think that's a good pick. Plus, he has SEC experience. I mean, the dude graduated from Vanderbilt, went to Alabama as a grad student. So, I mean, he's done nothing but played in the SEC. So I think this was a good pick, and this is where they address that need of building that depth on the offensive line. Especially a guy, and one of the things, if you've ever noticed the Eagles, a lot of those guys, when somebody gets down, like they'll shift. Like somebody goes down, they'll shift a guy to another spot. So you're drafting a dude already who can do that, and then you're putting him with Jeff Stoutland. This dude could be around for a long, long time. All right, they followed that back up by taking Sidney Brown, a safety out of Illinois, who definitely, again, is a guy that fits a need. He's a very athletic. As being a Michigan fan, I've watched a lot of Big Ten football, and Illinois were one of the better teams this year. He's very athletic and aggressive. I think in Philly we're going to like that because those are the types of guys we have. From what I've seen, he's a very sure tackler. But because he's so aggressive, he is susceptible to the big play. But a lot of that's going to be dependent upon who you have with him. We saw that in the Buddy Ryan Eagles defenses where they were a little bit aggressive, but like the corners were aggressive, but you had the safety help. We saw that with Andy Reid because you had guys like Brian Dawkins, and then Brian Dawkins could be aggressive because you had good corners. So I think Sidney Brown, if you can surround him with some good players in that secondary, which the Eagles have, I think we could be onto something and building toward the future. I don't think he's going to be expected to be a starter. I think he's going to get some playing time. Should be a special teams guy this year, but I think he could be a contributor to this team, and the best thing for him is to just soak it all in and learn how to harness that aggression and use it for good and be able to pick and choose because some of the things he did in Illinois are not going to fly in the NFL. But overall, those two picks on day two, I mean, I was pleased with that. They addressed two needs with guys from big-time conferences who were some of the best players at those positions in their conferences, some of like in the country even. So I could not complain about that. And then obviously going into day three, had no idea what to expect because a lot of times this is where guys start having more and more question marks. Obviously, the first round you have question marks. Second round, third round guys you almost expect to be contributors their first year, being able to be possibly pushing the starter depending on who you have there and whatnot. Day three draft picks, I mean, again, it goes back to eliminating the risk. Or I shouldn't say eliminate it, minimizing your risk. You want to make sure you're taking guys that have a pedigree, who, yeah, they might not be good at this, but they make up for it with that. This is where sometimes you take guys with good work ethic, or the guys that are just raw, like a Jordan Mailata. Like the Eagles took a chance on him, and I would say that paid out. So a team like the Eagles, this is where when you're perennially one of the better teams and you're consistently in that playoff picture, this is where they're bread and butter. This is where they get their players and really start building the depth and things like that. So in the fourth round, they had pick number 105. They took Keely Ringo, cornerback from Georgia. Again, they're going back to the Georgia thing, but they were the two-time defending national champions. So not only do they have the championship mindset, they know how to win, they've played the best competition. I mean, the SEC, I feel, eventually is going to end up being a minor league for the NFL. Whether the Big Ten and Big 12 join them or not, I don't know. But, I mean, these are the best players in the country. So when you're getting guys that were starters on the national champions who have two national playoff experiences and as well as playing in the tough SEC, I think this is a good pick. I mean, Keely Ringo, he's tall, he's fast. This is a good value pick, and this is what you want here. They're minimizing the risk. He's not going to have to start. Like, you're taking the cornerback of the future. You have Bradbury, you have Big Play Slay in there. So guess what? This dude, you're coming in, you're a sponge. I expect Ringo to be a sponge, just soaking it all in. It's good value. He's a Georgia guy. He has that championship pedigree. You're going to a championship team now. This is I love this pick, and I love the strategy now that we're seeing the shift from Howie Roseman in taking guys with that pedigree. And if we're minimizing the risk, this guy has played against a lot of the best players in the country. So it should not be that much of a leap for him to do. I want to see him do some things on special teams, but most importantly, I want him in that corner or that secondary room, defensive back room, just soaking it all in, asking questions, and just studying the two guys he's playing behind. They did not have a fifth-round pick. So moving on to the sixth round, number 188, Tanner McKee, quarterback from Stanford. He could compete for the third spot. I'll be honest, I don't know much about him. I feel as though there's always a need. They don't have sort of that homegrown quarterback like a Nick Foles or even a Kevin Cobb. The guys that come in and back up the star. And they always say we're the quarterback factory, so you bring them in and see what happens. And I kind of question the whole quarterback factory thing because there's been so much turnover since that comment has been made. But, hey, I won't knock this pick. You're taking a sixth-round flyer on somebody who might be your third quarterback, possibly the backup of the future. I mean, we've seen, as Eagles fans, we should all know this, that you can never have too many quarterbacks, and you need to have that good quality quarterback, because when we had Nick Foles, there wasn't much of a drop-off there from Carson Wentz. You saw that it was the disparity between Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts last year was a little bit more. So, hey, have the kid come in, take a shot, let him carry the clipboard. I don't know. I mean, again, sixth-round pick, you're minimizing risk here. They must have not had anybody at any other position that filled a need that was ranked as high, so why not take a flyer on it? It's hard to knock somebody who's going in the sixth round. And then finally, seventh round, 279 overall, Moro Ojomo from defensive tackle from Texas. Again, undersized, but I think it's good value for the seventh round. You have a guy who's good, played on a good team in a good conference, a little bit small, but I kind of think that the fact that he's played against the talent and the skill level people that he's played for, not a bad pick for a seventh rounder. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to be mad at the day 3 drafts. Again, those are the picks, though, that it's kind of you're just throwing it against the wall and see what happens. But overall, for Well, you know what? Let me go into this because I think it is related and it has to go. By the way, on day 3, they also addressed one final need because if you notice, the only position they did not address that I felt was a need, other than tight end, that's my own. They're high on, I forget the guy's name now, but I guess they're high on the backup tight end. Let me see who it is real quick. I hate that. I get so into it and I completely forget names because I get super into it. But he played last year. Stoll. I think they like Stoll, and I forgot they got Calcantara last year too that they're high on. I personally would have tried to maybe get another tight end, but the other position they didn't. They addressed secondary depth. They addressed offensive and defensive line depth. They addressed the need at linebacker, running back. So Howie, because of the way that the Lions drafted, DeAndre Swift said, hey, I want to be traded. He saw the writing on the wall. He's in the final year of his contract. They called him up, got him for a 4th-round pick in 2025. So basically, they traded a pick from 2 years from now for a guy who not only has came in with a lot of hype. Yes, he's somewhat injury prone, but he's also on his contract year, so he's looking to prove something. He's also a Philly guy. He's coming home. And I feel like this is a huge pickup because DeAndre Swift has the hype. He has the skill if he can just stay healthy. The great thing about it playing for the Eagles, he's not going to need to be the bell cow back. So that means he's going to not carry the ball 20, 25 times a game. He's going to be one of the guys. Hopefully he's one of the main guys, but he's a better pass catcher, I feel, than Miles Sanders. I feel that he is a better runner when healthy. Put him behind that offensive line. Give him a chance to catch the ball where he doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. I mean, look at the Eagles' offense. DeAndre Swift is just a nice piece and a piece that they need. Let him prove it. Maybe he signs long-term. Who knows? But he's a St. Joe's prep guy. He's coming home and addresses the need. So put that all together, and I have to give this draft an A. 100% an A. I don't believe necessarily giving A pluses because, I don't know. It's not like, to me, if I give this draft an A plus, that would just be the homer in me. But I'm trying my hardest to be objective about this. But I really think this was an A draft, especially if you include DeAndre Swift in there and some of the undrafted free agents they have. And those guys are always hit or miss. There's a reason why they didn't get drafted. But the intriguing one for me is Eli Ricks, who was the cornerback from Alabama. And I find him intriguing because he was a 5-star recruit out of high school, went to LSU, had a great freshman year. Then he injured his shoulder and transferred to Alabama. And then he just struggled with Alabama last year, trying to adjust to their defensive system, trying to get back from that injury. And he acknowledged like it was a struggle for him. And he had that great freshman year, and I think that's why he fell a lot in the draft. The talent is there for him, and why not take a flyer on him? And again, he's one of those guys who is an SEC guy, has the pedigree, being the 5-star recruit. So I personally feel that this could be a huge pickup for them, especially if he's going to be in there with Keely Ringo and just soaking things up with Slay and Bradbury. I hope he learns how to play some special teams because I want to see what he can do once fully healthy and able to just soak in the system. And he's not going to be expected to come in and start and be a difference maker. I mean, he's an undrafted free agent. So he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. And I think the way that Howie did this draft, he did exactly what he needed to do. He didn't miss necessarily on a pick. It's not like one of the picks you're like, why the hell did you take this? Or who the hell is this guy? He didn't reach for anybody. He let guys fall to him, and he knew they had their list. When he had to, he moved up to grab a guy. That's what you want. I like the fact that he went with the big conferences. They took guys from the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, the powerhouse conferences, rather than taking the risk on some of the smaller schools, the big fish in a little pond. He took the big fish in the big ponds. All right. So time will tell. Obviously, there's still so many different moving parts of this, but heading into the OTAs, I like it. I hope that Howie kind of contains himself, because I know he's getting a lot of accolades and people calling him a genius and this, that, and the other. The other GMs are getting pissed off about it, probably rightfully so, but I feel like we go through this every year and these guys still pick up the phone when Howie calls. So whatever he's doing it. I've said it a million times. I don't know what he's playing, but everybody else is playing Go Fish, and he's up here making up games and just dominating. I give this draft an A, and that includes Rick's as well as DeAndre Swift in the whole draft, because it all happened within the window. I'm very excited to see what these guys can do. I'm excited to have them get out there, start learning from the other guys. And I like the culture they have. They have a good mix. And it's going to help guys like Jalen Carter, to be honest, have guys that he played with in high school or college on the team. So everybody's making fun of the Georgia thing. Not only are they the two-time defending national champs, they were a damn good defense. And now you got guys from that defense on the same team. They're going to be comfortable. So a lot of those different the feeling out periods, getting adjusted, it's going to be easier because they had two guys from last year from their teammates that are already there. And now they have other guys that they played with. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we should learn the Georgia fight song. But in all seriousness, it's going to help you because they know people. And they're not going to be meeting everybody. And then you have the strong leadership with Brandon Graham, a Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Darius Slay. Those guys are here, and they were brought back, especially Cox, Graham, and Kelsey, on those one-year deals to help these guys adjust, help build up that culture, and help the next guys come up. I mean, to me, the Eagles are still an NFC Super Bowl contender. I think that there's no reason to believe they can't defend their crown. Yes, there's going to be a lot of teams gunning for them. Are they going to go 14-3? Doubt it. But should they win the division again? They should. I know nobody has won it back-to-back since the Eagles did it back in the Andy Reid era. Why not? And Donovan era. Why not do it now? Why not break that streak this year? And I can't see anybody right now in the NFC East, if barring any catastrophic injuries for the Eagles, I can't see any of them overtaking it. And Howie basically put a stamp on it and said, our window's wide open. We're fucking going for it. Well, let's go have a snack. But A draft for the Eagles. I will take it. I'm not giving it an A+, because then you guys are going to accuse me of being a homer and drinking the green Kool-Aid and whatnot. But gladly will take this draft. Very, very pleased with it. Thank you, Howie. All right. So next week's episode is still to be determined. I have some things lined up. If you notice, we've sort of been shifting gears a little bit with Back to the Future. We haven't been doing as much of the what if. I want to make it more in line with the This Day in Philly Sports History, where we pick more like a history thing and take a deeper dive. So basically the same thing we've been doing, but just kind of taking that what if out of it. We might add that what if piece in depending, but I almost felt like I originally started this podcast to help me with the book. I kind of got over that, and I plan on this summer going back to the book. And I don't want to necessarily do all the what ifs and not have the book be relevant, but I'm going to start doing more things like that, especially over the summer when everything dies down and it's really only the Phillies. So stay tuned for that. There will be an episode next week. Just with my day job and everything, it's been very, very hectic. We're doing state testing, so I'm out of the office. I'm traveling. I'm not used to it. And I know people are out there and it's like, wow, I got to drive to work. But I'm not used to it, all right? And it does. It takes time. And the time I had from not driving, I was putting into the podcast. Now that I'm driving, I don't have time to put in the podcast, so back off. Just kidding. Be sure to listen. Tell your friends. Spread the word. Tell one person. Tell them to like and subscribe. Because, again, I have a lot of things lined up that I need as many likes and subscribes for. So thank you for that. Speaking of this day in Philly sports history, be sure to check that out every day wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. This month, we've been spotlighting the Sixers playoff years just to hopefully keep this run going, and hopefully we're going into the June with a fun run to the NBA Finals. Be sure to follow me on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, Jimbo_Mont. Instagram, Philly Jimbo. Be sure to let me know. What do you think about the draft? Did Howie fuck it up? Did he do well? Somewhere in between. Send me a message, give me a comment, whatever you got to do, smoke signal, carrier pigeon, whatever works for you. But this has been Back to the Future, the Eagles NFL Draft Recap. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a week, and until next time, I will see you when I see you.